and it will be Saturday night in Death Valley.
Helm, he's running over people! Oh, you Herschel Walker!
They're not going to keep him off the field tonight!
Well, we are off and running here on Sweet Home SEC. Clint Switzer, Noah Gronniger coming at you following a action-packed Week 3. As we head into Week 4, it is great to be with you. Our sponsor, as always, is the documentary Stadium Crashers. Stadium Crashers, Life's a Great Adventure or Nothing. Pick your copy up at stadiumcrashers.com. If you're a fan of the SEC or college football, it is a must-own, I would say.
It is, and it helps us fundraise for our new documentary. Going to start filming in the fall of 2018, Saturday Supremacy. Instead of just going to empty stadiums in the summer, trying to find our way in, look at the culture, we're going to be going to a game every single week.
Well, we're coming off a week in Noah where plenty of excitement and plenty of drama. Of course, starting with the sensation in the swamp, as I'm calling it. Tennessee comes all the way back only to see the Florida Gators, Felipe Franks, throw a Hail Mary to Tyree Cleveland that is caught in stride for a touchdown on the game's final play. Big win for the Gators, a big statement win, and maybe even a bigger statement made by Tennessee that Coach Butch Jones is really struggling at this point with to lose this fan base. Tennessee off to not – I mean, they were really lucky to beat Georgia Tech in the first game.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to Erik Ainge coming up, former Tennessee quarterback, going to be joining us to talk about the fate of the Vols, but big win for the Gators as you're seeing it up here. What a play it was.
It was that Hail Mary. They were kind of in between what they can play. They can't really play prevent if Felipe Franks throws a 20-yard dart and they get out of bounds and they can kick a field goal. So they had to play this defense where they're just kind of playing a straight-up defense. They can't go prevent. So Micah Abernathy, the safety back there for the Vols, he turned the wrong way instead of opening his hips to the goal line, and that allowed the receiver, Tyree Cleveland, to get over the top, get behind him. He wasn't deepest of the deepest, so Tyree Cleveland comes down with that. The Gators come out with a big win.
Well, we want to welcome to Sweet Home SEC our guest this week. It is former Tennessee quarterback Erik Ainge from WNML in Knoxville. Erik, tough loss for the Tennessee Volunteers, of course, on Saturday. Just kind of give us a rundown what the feeling is going on down there in Knoxville.
I think it's kind of all over the place, man. I think some people understand that shotgun is what a lot of teams do now. Some fans understand that we did call a run play and Dormady audible to a pass on the goal line. There's just a lot of examples, things like that are one-time mistakes that you have to make. And if you make those, you got to learn from them. And the problem in the Florida game was all of those lessons were back to back, red zone, sack, penalty, missed field goal, interception, all that kind of stuff. We just way too many mistakes.
Well, I wanted to ask you kind of what happened on that last play of the game with a Hail Mary. Looked like safety Micah Abernathy turned the wrong way. Maybe if he had opened his hips more towards the end zone, the goal line, and just kind of ran, he would have been in position to make that play.
Yeah, it was what's called cover 6. So quarter, halves. To the field, you play quarters. Safety in the corner, they're backpedaling. They each have a deep quarter, and then Abernathy and I think it was Martin maybe in the boundary. They were playing a rolled up cover 2 to that side, which means Abernathy's got the deep pass right where the ball was caught. He just didn't stay deeper than the deepest, and it happened to us last year at Georgia. Thankfully we were able to hit the Hail Mary to Jawan Jennings, who we don't have this year due to a wrist injury. But the play before that, Eason threw the 47-yard touchdown, and we were just playing man-to-man, showing blitz, backing off because we couldn't let them just throw a check down and get a field goal. And that was similar to the Florida game. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. You just have to play a standard defensive play and hope that they don't do exactly what they did.
Yeah.
Well, Erik, I'm sure you've talked on your radio show about this all week, probably for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, depending on when all this really started with regards to Butch Jones and the pressure that's on him. But, I guess simply put, from our neck of the woods here in Missouri and the things that we hear, what is the temperature down there as far as what's going to have to happen, I guess, at this point for Butch to hang on, because he's on the hottest of seats right now, certainly.
I think that he's on a hot seat with some fans. He's certainly not with me. Do I have concerns? Sure. I mean, yeah. And I've always, the way that I've described Butch Jones, from the minute he got here, and I went up, I was actually one of his first meetings in 2013 up in his office. And from that moment until now, nobody works harder than him. Nobody outworks him. He cares. He really wants to be good here. So that's awesome. And I want someone who wants to be a volunteer, getting good quality young men in here to be husbands and fathers and hopefully win us a couple divisions and win us some SEC championships. And I still think that he can for sure be that guy. I think John Curry does too. In fact, I know John Curry, our new athletic director, does as well. So, I'd rather go 9-3, 10-2 on occasion with a division and a chance to play in the SEC championship with good young men, student athletes, than, the opposite of that.
Well, I kind of want to get kind of big picture. What have you seen from the Vols early on this season, and specifically Quentin Dormady and John Kelly? Your running back seems to be really carrying the load there for the Vols.
Man, John Kelly, he's fun to watch, man. Whether you're a SEC fan or a Big 10 fan, Big 12, it doesn't matter. He runs so hard, and he's so talented, and he wants it so much. And he shouldn't have gator chumped, but you know what? Hey, when you are averaging 10 yards a carry and you're wearing them out, I don't blame him. I'm like, dang, that's like, you just hope he can harness the emotion. But I'm very thrilled with what he's doing. Our offensive line wore Florida out in the second half. They were road graders. They played good, blocking them downfield. Dormady throws off his back foot too much, and he does it on third down some. The interception in the red zone wasn't his fault. This receiver has to cross his face, and you have to throw it with good timing, assuming he's going to do what you trust him to do. And Palmer's a true freshman, and he couldn't cross the DB's face, so he tried to go over the top of him, hence the Duke Dawson interception. Dormady needs to continue to get better with his situational awareness and decision-making, because he's made some great plays, and he's made some really average plays to some really bad ones. And it's unfortunate, and I sent him this text message after the game, because I remember, now I'm not Peyton, I understand that, but I got a similar text message from Peyton when I was a freshman. We played Auburn in 2004, that undefeated team. And I turned it over 5 times. 4 interceptions, and I fumbled a QB sneak. It was the only QB sneak I never converted in my college career. And he sent me a nice message after that. So I did the same thing to Dormady.
Awesome. That's great to see, and you love that camaraderie amongst volunteers, and that's great that you have that with them. And I want to get into the SEC East in a big picture here in Missouri. We don't have much of the conversation here because Missouri appears to be absolutely horrendous. But the other team there in Tennessee, the Vanderbilt Commodores, with a big win over Kansas State. You've seen Georgia look pretty impressive with freshman Fromm taking over for Jacob Eason. Florida, of course, has won back-to-back, and they get the big win over Tennessee. Where do you see this division shaking out right now? And maybe y'all for not anyway, because of how Alabama looks. Once again, the East hasn't won since 2008. But how do you see this division shaping up?
I think that the SEC East division champion this year that's going to get a chance to take on Alabama again is going to have at least 2 losses. Georgia's got a tough schedule, man. They still have to play Auburn. They still have to. Now I know it's not in the division, but they still have to play Georgia Tech at the end. South Carolina. They have a lot of teams they have to still play this year. And I don't know who their other SEC West opponent is. Is it Mississippi State? That's who they're playing this weekend, right?
Yeah. Yes, that is correct.
So they're playing. So it's Mississippi State and Georgia, and I don't know. State might give them a loss, which would be nice since we have LSU and Alabama. I'm going to go with we are not going to sweep the West this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully Mississippi State can come out on top in that one. But Tennessee looks like they can get back on their feet with the game against UMass. But what do you see after that? After that big Georgia-Mississippi State, you guys get your chance to take on the Bulldogs and Jake Fromm. What do you see in that matchup next week?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to find a way to make a young quarterback uncomfortable. It's actually a blessing sometimes when you're young and you're new and you're green, because you don't know to worry about all this other situational football that I'm talking about. The coaches know you don't know it, so they don't put you in those situations, and they don't expect you to, or they have to remind you of all these things going on. But you don't want to let a guy like that who's talented. I was this way when I was in college. You don't want them to start feeling pretty good about themselves. You don't want them to, halfway through the first quarter go, oh man, I thought these guys were going to be, a little tougher than they are. We can torch these guys. You got to get on them early. You got to pressure them early. You have to get him off the spot, make him feel uncomfortable. And if you can do that, then I think that he'll, there's some opportunity, and obviously stop the run. Gosh, both teams right now are very good at running the football, so it'll be a good game. It'll be fun.
Well, and talking about Georgia a little bit further, I mean, Coach Kirby Smart comes in, no head coaching experience, but comes in and last season was up and down for them. And going into this year, they've been talked about as the prohibitive favorite in the East so many times in the last 10 years, dating back to Mark Richt, and they haven't always lived up to that. Something seemed to be missing for Georgia. What do you think, Kirby Smart's going to have to do going forward to get Georgia to be the perennial SEC East favorite? I know that's hard to ask a Tennessee guy, but what do you think? What do you think Kirby Smart's prognosis is down in Georgia?
He's going to need an act of God. That's my response. It ain't going to happen. No, of course, I'm just being facetious. I think Kirby Smart's a really good defensive-minded coach. I think he's got a good coaching staff there. Sam Pittman is a good O-line guy. Jim Chaney is a real. I think he's a good coordinator anyway. I mean, he was when he had Drew Brees. And he, maybe he forgot how to call plays all of a sudden. He does throw the ball a little too much in what I deem run downs and run situations. But anyway, I think that they're on the right track. They're recruiting well. Keep the kids, from Georgia's going to Georgia, and they're always going to get some guys arrested. And, that's what Spurrier used to love. Great thing about getting Georgia early is you can count on about 3 to 5 of their best players not being out there. So if Kirby Smart does that and has the same approach that Mark Richt did, which I doubt he will, I think that they have a chance to do something. And as much as I hate Georgia guys and grown men barking at each other like that, come on. But I do really think that having an alum like him coach your school is a little extra special. So it would make it even more fun, and it would hurt him even more if we could go be their first loss, or maybe second loss, actually, would be ideal if Mississippi State could get them this weekend.
Well, Eric, I think maybe my ears are playing tricks on me. Did I hear a former quarterback say someone else is passing the ball too much, and even in rundowns?
Hey, and that's mainly, I'm dating myself back to 2012 Tennessee with Tyler Bray and Michael Rivera, Justin Hunter, and Cordero Patterson, and gosh, I know he had Tyler Bray, who was had a cannon for an arm, and he wasn't going to run ever. But still, I mean, they wore it out. We had to punt a few times. That I used some FCC choice words on those drives.
Well, we know Tyler Bray pretty well here in Kansas City. Of course, he's a third string here for the Kansas City Chiefs, so we've gotten to know Tyler quite a bit.
A 10-man in the backfield, can't really move very well.
Yeah, you know what, Tyler, I'm proud of Tyler. Sorry if you can hear that. My 4-year-old daughter's following me. Tyler is one of those guys that because he played with Derek Dooley, who's probably the worst football coach in the history of people that have ever attempted to coach football. I'm told he's a co-writer of Football for Dummies.
Yes.
What he is. But Tyler really had a hard time with Dooley, and that's ultimately, why he ended up leaving early, and he's really matured. Everyone thought he was immature and kind of a punk when he was here. He just had to play for Dooley. I like to think I've handled it different, but, I don't know that I would have. So I'm glad that he's got to be in Kansas City and have a great start permanently. Hopefully he can play for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, Erik, before we let you go, we got to let you know we are getting ready to film next year an SEC football documentary called Saturday Supremacy. We're going to be on the road down in your area. We'd love to get down there and maybe have a conversation on your show about it, because it's going to be we're going to be going to all 14 SEC stadiums, going to be doing it all, and we'd love to come and hang out and talk with you about that when we come do that next fall. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you just kind of your idea as a quarterback going into playing all these special SEC places. What was an atmosphere? What's a place that really stuck out to you?
Well, and this is kind of not part of your question, but I'm really looking forward to us playing at Auburn next year, because my wife is an Auburn grad.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes the third Saturday in October for Tennessee and the Iron Bowl that much more fun, because we both have a mutual hatred for Alabama.
Sure.
And my kids think that zombies are fake. Are zombies real? Only in what state? Hold on, say that. Zombies in Tuscaloosa.
I thought The Walking Dead was filmed in Georgia, but I guess they can go over the line, I guess.
I tell you what. At least they shower in Georgia.
That will be awesome, Erik. I tell you what, looking forward to that. Of course, Tennessee gets Alabama every year. That's part of your blessing and your curse as that rivalry goes back deep. And Erik, can't thank you enough for joining us. Let's catch up down the road as Missouri plays Tennessee later on. We'll preview that game. We'll talk more about this documentary. We appreciate you the time, my man. Good luck to the Vols.
Of course. See you guys.
You bet.
Thanks.
Well, we will definitely be talking with Erik again next week as the Volunteers get ready to take on the Georgia Bulldogs, who, as we talked about in the interview, take on upstart Mississippi State. What Dan Mullen's been able to do with the Bulldogs this year, getting them back into relevance. Huge win over LSU. Quarterback Nick Fitzgerald's playing great for Mississippi State right now. Props to Dan Mullen, who a lot of people thought after Dak Prescott went to the NFL that Mississippi State was going to climb back into the cellar of the SEC West. Not so fast on that one, because Mississippi State looks like maybe the contender to Alabama in the West right now. I mean, who else do you have? I really don't like what Auburn's doing currently. I think they're going to kill Missouri on Saturday, but they just had their quarterback arrested, backup quarterback Sean White.
Yeah. Still got Stidham there, so.
I still don't really like what Brett Bielema has with the Arkansas Razorbacks, LSU.
A&M, no.
So is Mississippi State the only chance of a non-Alabama?
It probably
SEC.
is. It's not a good chance, but Mississippi State has been impressive. They'll get another chance to prove it this weekend against the Georgia Bulldogs. But Nick Fitzgerald against that LSU defense, they were impressive. The Mississippi State defense holding Danny Etling, the LSU quarterback, in check. They couldn't get anything going. Offense, defense, it was just a complete disconnect, and Mississippi State took advantage. Hail State.
We talked about coaches on the hot seat. We talked about Butch Jones. Erik Ainge believes it's not time for that just yet. Talk about another coaching hot seat. How about at Missouri, where the Tigers are coming off one of the worst performances really since the dark ages of the program in the 80s and early 90s. Missouri is completely lost right now. Everything they're doing seems to be failing. Coach Odom's fired defensive coordinator Damani Cross a week ago. And
players seem upset about that. There's rumors going around that maybe they quit in that game. So,
well, when you lose 35-3, when you're behind 21-0 just to start that game, Missouri hasn't been competitive. You look at what Missouri was supposed to be. We're 3 weeks removed from Missouri possibly being a dark horse in the East, a team that might be on the rise, returning
offensive juggernaut.
When you return 10 starters and quarterback Drew Lock, they look lost. That unit under Josh Heupel looks completely lost. Coach Odom, this is a rare thing in college football, my man. When you're talking about 2 years in a huge hot seat like this, is it possible? Is it out of the realm of possibilities? Does Missouri need to move forward with someone else? Athletic director Jim Sturck did not hire Barry Odom at Missouri. How much trouble is he in after these performances?
I think if the wheels kind of fall off this thing and it gets going off the rails and kind of into the ditch on the side, I think this is his last year at Missouri.
What more off the rails do you want? You play number 15 Auburn coming up before you play Georgia and Kentucky.
We're talking.
Where's this going?
This is most likely off the rails, and we're out of here. But if he pulls off some miracle wins here, he might be able to save his job. Which I don't know if you really want him to pull out some miracle wins. You want a new direction. This isn't really working. You don't want him to kind of sneak out a few wins here and, oh, well, I guess we'll bring him back. He got a few wins there. They barely beat Georgia. They got killed at Auburn. But, I mean, I think you're looking at maybe, can we go back to Gary Pinkel? I mean, the cancer's gone.
I just don't think that's logical. I don't think he wants to do it. And with that being said,
Les Miles is out there. Hello?
Is that kind of the ceiling for Missouri? What can Missouri do at this point? Where they're at as a program, they have a $100 million stadium renovation coming up. What can Missouri do from here? You needed Odom to work out, is my point. You needed Barry Odom to work out, because aside from that, what are you going to pull in here?
I don't know if they have the money to throw out there for surely you can get Chip Kelly on the pennies on the dollar there or Les Miles. That might be a little tougher get, but Gary Pinkel seems like the logical choice, but you're not sure if he does want to just make that comeback, and you're just left in a place where you don't know. You're hoping this kind of gets resolved. Barry Odom kind of going away and hearing about some candidates coming up later in the season.
Well, we talked about, you're talking about, I mentioned, could Missouri be patient with Barry Odom? One program that was patient with its head coach, Derek Mason, and the Vanderbilt Commodores, they were patient with him. They immediately returned to the SEC East cellar when James Franklin left for Penn State, but what a big win for them. Their first win over a non-conference ranked opponent since World War II, since 1946. They beat Kansas State 14-7. Their defense is legit. Where is Vanderbilt in the scheme of this? Because I know the East is wide open, but my goodness, can you really start to consider Vanderbilt after this win over K-State? Or are we just throwing the Big 12 off the cliff here?
I think we're going to throw the Big 12 under the bus here and say K-State probably shouldn't have been ranked number 18. Ertz can't really throw the ball if you kind of take away the run game, which is easier said than done, but Vanderbilt was pretty successful in that and shutting them down on key third and fourth downs. Ertz couldn't get it going, couldn't get those key first downs late in the game, and Vanderbilt comes out the winner. I don't see them being a player in the East when it comes to maybe possibly winning the East. They're a nice story. It was a nice win, but I don't think K-State should have been ranked 18th, so that makes it a little bit more impressive than it probably should have been.
Yeah, their schedule stiffens as they play Alabama on Saturday, so I've actually got the Tide in that game. Don't know if anybody else does, but I'll be taking the Tide and the points. Rest of college football around the nation as we get away from our little sweet tea bubble in the SEC. One thing that stood out to me, Sam Darnold at USC is by far and away the best quarterback in college football. You saw what Josh Rosen was able to do. Solid performance, but a loss to Memphis. I just don't like UCLA. I don't like Rosen to be able to carry them. Sam Darnold, on the other hand, was able to carry the Trojans to a big win over Texas.
See what he's doing here? He's just throwing out names he knows. He's heard at the top of the NFL draft charts. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. No, I'm going Sam Ehlinger from Texas, the backup quarterback there. He came in, had an impressive performance, almost came away with the win. Of course, Texas couldn't quite get it done. They're going up against the number 4 team in USC. Sam Darnold was impressive. I'll throw out a name that I know too. But Sam Ehlinger, a name we all learned this past weekend, he was impressive. Texas may have found a new quarterback, may have found something that they can move forward with in a positive light.
Texas has had moments where under Charlie Strong, they look like they were back. They beat Notre Dame last year. They've had quarterbacks like Swoops come in and look like the next big thing. The fact is, quarterback has been a problem for Texas since Colt McCoy left, and I'm not ready to
This one is different than Swoops.
I'm not ready to go there.
This one is the real one. Texas will win.
I'm not ready to go there. Tom Herman.
Matthew McConaughey said Texas is going to win.
Well,
they're going to win a national championship in the next 2 years.
The only other storyline in the Big 12 is this. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are going to play each other twice in a row this year. Once at the Bedlam at the end of the year, and then the next week in the Big 12 championship game. So that's pretty much been decided. I think that the Big 12 looks to reside down there in the Sooner State.
Not Kansas. I mean, they played a tough game against Ohio. They were right there. They could have won it. They fell a little bit short. They're looking more impressive. I mean, they can give somebody a run
When
here.
you start talking about Kansas, that's when I know it's time to sign off here on Sweet Home SEC.
Okay, yeah.
And then I know that it's time to start saying things like our website's gasnsports.com.
At GASN Sports Network on Twitter. Hit us up. We love the interaction. If you want a guest, you want a topic talked about your team, did we not mention them? You're an Oregon Ducks fan. Are you an Appalachian State fan? Tell us, and we will, well, maybe not Appalachian State, but we'll try and talk about them.
I know there are no Kansas fans, so please don't bring that up. Because we'd have to end the show at that point. Because again, as soon as you said Kansas, the show, we started signing off.
We had 10 more minutes planned, but I mentioned Kansas, so it's over. So.
Sweet Home SEC, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll come back next week talking about everything we love, God, sweet tea, and the SEC.
And I promise, no more Kansas.